Hi everyone, my name is Yunfei Gou. First, I want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I work and live, and recognize their continuing connection to land, water, and community. So I pay respect to elders past, present, and emerging.
Vinaka Yunfei for that acknowledgement to country for our group. I would like to take you through our unit of work and the different KLAs that we have planned for the 8 lessons within those 8 weeks. We are starting off with a history lesson, and then we will have an English lesson. We have decided as a group that it does make sense to have history as our first lesson so that we can bring children into a context of agriculture from a history perspective. And then we'll use this knowledge to build on the different texts that they need to read and understand using literacy and some science experiments, doing soap making, using agriculture raw materials, and also we will look at mathematics, the numeracy skills of time from an Aboriginal perspective of time. And then we will build on to the next KLA, which is creative arts, and then we will finish off this group of lessons with another history lesson, which brings all together the different KLAs that we have been teaching on the theme agriculture for the 8 weeks. Now that's basically what we are teaching, and we hope that at the end of the 8th week we will be able to achieve the learning outcomes outlined in the syllabus, and also incorporated a lot of the 8 ways of learning, the teaching pedagogies of Aboriginal Australian through partnership, through use of symbols, use of maps, and use of collaborative learning, storytelling. These are the ways of learning that is synonymous to Aboriginal Australian. And also, I would like to acknowledge my group for the work done, and we hope that you will understand agriculture better after the conclusion of our 8th lesson. Now I will give time to the rest of my group members to introduce themselves. Vinaka.
Hello, my name is Leonardo Hickswolf.
Good morning or evening. I'm Jack Whitehead.
Hi, my name is Katina Gibbs.
Bole Vinaka, my name is Leslie Kramalama Vunovo from the beautiful islands of Fiji.
So today I'm going to talk about my lesson, which is the first lesson of our unit of work. So this lesson mainly focuses on the background knowledge of Aboriginal agriculture and aquaculture. It's a history lesson which uses the learning outcomes from stage 3 of the history K10 syllabus. The outcome that I choose is discuss the impact of settlement on local Aboriginal peoples and the environment, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories and cultures, sustainability. Explore the lives of people in Australia's colonial past, the development of agriculture, aquaculture, and how the colonial settlement changed the environment of living. A large section of my lesson will be explicit teaching, which will demonstrate some identical features of Aboriginal agriculture and aquaculture, such as the yam, traditional staple vegetables of the indigenous people, and fish traps and other fishing systems that the first people used around the whole country. I will also indicate the modern westernized ways of agriculture and aquaculture which are used in our contemporary society now inside Australia, and encourage the students to think about what they have changed, and can you identify the different perspectives that we define what is agriculture and aquaculture in our modern societies compared with the past. The in-class activity that I use for this lesson will be a drawing activity, which is about using students' imagination and the knowledge they have learned before about the indigenous culture and history to draw a picture on the paper, and then write a brief description about that picture. I will encourage students to access their prior knowledge about this topic and trying to make their artworks meaningful. Some differentiation methods might be addressed in this lesson. If we got like indigenous students in this lesson and he or she or they have prior knowledge about what we will learn in this lesson that the other students might not know. So I might ask the indigenous students to be a guest speaker to briefly demonstrate what they know about today's topic. So in the exploration phase of this lesson, as I mentioned above, help students to access the knowledge they have learned before from other subject areas is important, extremely important for a holistic teaching approach. So the assessment methods through this lesson is mainly about the observation of students' engagement and the analysis of their artworks. For those students who do not want to show their works in class, I could collect their works and descriptions, then provide the feedback individually after class or at the beginning of the next class. It could be a written feedback or an oral feedback. It doesn't really matter. Depends on the situation that I made. The resources that we need for this lesson I have attached in my individual lesson plan, which I have submitted to the Blackboard, including the PowerPoint slides that I will use to demonstrate my lesson, the content knowledge of my lesson, and some drawing utensils such as the color pencil, paper, and the projector, computer, pen and paper. Thank you.
Today I will be talking about my lesson plan, which is the third lesson in our unit plan on science. This lesson plan mainly focuses on a design project using research and solutions to inform student ideas. This is similar to the unit plan on English as it integrates a range of skills, strategies, and knowledge. My lesson links to the Stage 3 syllabus of Learning Science and Technology, K-6 education standards, by using materials, tools, and equipment to develop a need or opportunity. This lesson will inform students on how agriculture is linked to science and how the indigenous people used chemistry to create natural soaps. I will start my class with the orientation by providing an educational experience with soap by instructing students to observe what happens when they wash their hands with soap. The second part of my lesson plan will be the explicit teaching. Students will sit at their desks and watch a slideshow on how agriculture is linked to science and how the indigenous people use chemistry to create natural soaps. The slideshow will show the agricultural links and show a traditional indigenous practice on how to make Aboriginal bush soap. There will be 4 steps shown in the slideshow. Step 1 will be to fill a large tub with 1 litre of water. Step 2 will be to wet green sickle leaves in hands and rub them together. Step 3 will be to keep rubbing hands together and to add wattle pods to the sickle leaves and rub your hands together. Step 4 will be to keep rubbing hands together until a white lather foam is created. The slideshow will show a detailed method and a series of images and a list of materials needed to create the Aboriginal soap, such as the green sickle leaves, wattle seed pods, water, and large tubs and measuring cups. The slideshow will then show the science behind the method of making soap and how it creates chemical compound called saponions. The next part of my lesson plan will be the exploration. Students will now stand up at their desks in their allocated groups and begin to make the soap. I will end the lesson with a consolidation. This will be a reflection at the end of the class on the taught lesson. I will ask a series of questions on the whiteboard, and the original groups formed at the beginning of the lesson will answer these questions. Dealing with the differentiations in my lesson plan, students who finish their experiment early will be given the task of helping other students who are struggling to make the soap themselves. When it comes to the assessment side of my lesson plan, utilizing prior knowledge through questioning techniques will be one of the ways I will be assessing. Experiment results demonstrating making soap and observing successful soap making and the observation of student experiment. This will follow on to the next lesson. The next lesson taught will be on mathematics and how it represents mathematical solutions in a variety of ways using mathematical terminology and some conventions.
So following on from the first lesson plan, we've got the second, which will be a KLA on English. So the outcomes for this one will be, there are 3 for this one. Use integrated range of skills, strategies and knowledge to read, view and comprehend a wide range of texts in different media and technologies. Thinks imaginatively, creatively, interpretively and critically about the information on ideas and identifies connections between texts when responding and composing texts. And the third one identifies and considers how different viewpoints of the world, including aspects of culture, are represented in text. So they're the outcomes. The intended learning will be respond to, read and view text, so comparing context from a variety of different sources, digital or media. Summarize a text and evaluate the intended message or theme, and engage personally with text. So think critically about the aspects of text such as ideas. So I'll go over the lesson now quickly. Orientation, have a quick 5-minute discussion on what happened in the last class. So what was talked about in the history lesson. After that, have a little 5-minute brainstorming activity to get the kids' imagination rolling. So ask them a question about agriculture, indigenous agriculture, and just get the ball rolling. And explicit teaching, quick 5 minutes to go over Aboriginal agriculture, get the Indigenous students involved, get them to come up and share their knowledge, what they know, bit of peer-on-peer teaching. You sit back, sort of take a back seat in that one. Do that for about 5 minutes, and then, or 5 to 10. The next one, you'll watch a 5-minute video, and that will be what they will look at in exploration. In exploration, there are 2 activities. So the first one is for everyone, but the more higher up learners will have more to go on to. They'll have a constant stream of work to do, whereas those that will struggle will have that first one to work on, and if they do get past it, then we can move on to the next one. So the first activity is just half a page on the video we just watched, so prior knowledge or short-term memory, and just quickly jotting down some points from that. Activity 2 is a writing task, which more first-hand accounts on Aboriginal agriculture, what they have created with Aboriginal agriculture in their past, and then from that they will have 2 other parts, so it's split up into 3 parts. So the next 2 parts will go into more detail on that first part. And then after that, consultation, we'll come together as a class and sort of go over different perspectives in the class. So have the Aboriginal students again share theirs again, and then have other students share theirs, sharing ideas we have, and then at the end simply ask, what did we learn today, what did we find interesting, and what did we find difficult, sort of gauge who needs that extra help in the next class, and those who are exceeding and maybe need more activities to do in further lessons.
Next, Kaylee, is mathematics, and I have a chosen topic for this particular maths lesson, and I've chosen syllabus outcome MA3-1WM, which describes and represents a mathematical situation in a variety of ways, using mathematical terminology and some conventions. And this will help children to understand time from an indigenous Australian perspective. And in doing so, I hope to achieve the content outcome and the syllabus outcome as listed in the lesson outline plan. Now moving on to the content indicators or the content outcomes. I've put two outcomes here. One is order a series of events according to the time taken to complete each one. And then I have added in another one, which is use start and finish times to calculate the elapsed time of events. Example, the time taken to travel from home to school. And I've added in this extra outcome because I feel that the teacher can put on an extension to the activities that I will be providing and achieve this outcome. Hence, I have included it in the outcome. Setting up for this lesson, so I would bring in pictures of fruits and vegetables and scatter them on the table, or I suggest you bring in physical representations of agricultural products like rice or native plants. This is not native, I'm just giving you an example, and you can put them and set it up nicely in front of the group arrangements, and then you can make sure you have enough materials like scissors, glue sticks, sellotapes, rulers, pencil, color pencils, pen, and markers and newsprint so that they can easily access them during the lesson to avoid wastage of time. And also make sure that all the materials are ready, your cutouts, your activities are well organized and printed out in the correct font. Now for the orientation part of the lesson, we have a focus, engage, and access. For focus, we're just going to introduce the theme, and for engage, I will try to get students to understand Aboriginal agriculture by reading a book to them called the Big Rain Coming. And then for access, I will get one of the Aboriginal elders. I'm doing this, engaging one of the 8 ways of Aboriginal learning, which is storytelling, to come and share stories of Aboriginal practices and how they manage their time in terms of agriculture practices within their own communities. And for reflection in orientation, we'll ask children to ask questions and build on the existing knowledge they have, and probably modify and extend the learning that they have grasped from the elder that was invited. For guided discovery, using the recorded story from the orientation, we'll ask students to elaborate more and explore more and see how best they can understand these Aboriginal practices of time management in agriculture. This is a whole class activity, and it's basically the teacher guiding the students by listening again to the recording of the story and trying to span out the activities within a frame of one day, and then they can use that for their next activity, which is in exploration. For the exploration stage or phase of the lesson, this is where we will use these baskets that I've showed you earlier, where we have listed different farming practices that we can identify from the guided discovery phase of the lesson. And then we can use these activities and then ask students to sort these different farm practices, like storing food, preserving food. Now using this and trap making, sort them. Whether they do trap making to get food and then they store them, or store food and then trap making and dam making. All these things, all these practices, sort them in the correct order and then put in specific timelines to address the issue of time awareness in the Aboriginal context. And then finishing off with a group presentation which you can use to assess what they have learned. For consolidation, we ask children to explore their own day, how they go about the daily events of their own day, coming to school, going back home, what they do, and try to compare them to what Aboriginal always do in a day, how they go about the activities, and then they can extend their learnings from there, and ask students to reflect on how they can use the Aboriginal concept of time to help them understand more of how Aboriginal, Indigenous Australians who live in the community and how they interact with them and how they behave. And then also, you can use the audio recording from the elder story. The student can explore the different events of the day for an Aboriginal Australian, and then compare them to how their family live and behave in their own communities. That's basically what the lesson is all about. And then using a group presentation, you can assess what the children have learned in terms of this big theme, agriculture and mathematics, for this particular lesson in Year 5. Thank you very much.
The lesson that I will be presenting is the 5th lesson in the unit plan. My lesson has a focus on traditional methods of agriculture and aquaculture. It is a visual arts lesson which is based on the syllabus outcome VAS 3.1. This outcome is that students investigate subject matter in an attempt to represent likenesses of things in the world. The lesson is built around this, with the main aspect of the lesson being that students are to create their own rendering of a specific Aboriginal agricultural or aquacultural site. The orientation of the lesson is designed to test the knowledge and understanding of the students in regard to their past lessons and about Aboriginal agriculture and aquaculture. Direct questioning is used here to prompt thought and discussion within the class. The students are then to brainstorm and create a mind map as a class, which will again reinforce their prior knowledge. In the explicit teaching section of the lesson, students will be shown a variety of images of different forms of agriculture and aquaculture. They are then to do a think, pair, share activity, wherein they will identify and explain the importance of one specific form of traditional agriculture or aquaculture. Following this, students are to create a rendering of one of the earlier images shown, using charcoal as a medium. They are then able to glue or attach things like rocks, dirt, sticks, and leaves to further reinforce their work. Once their work is completed, they are to discuss a series of questions with their chosen partner. This will work to reinforce prior knowledge and encourage them to think about why they created their artwork. Overall, this lesson has a focus on traditional Aboriginal agricultural and aquacultural sites. Students are to draw upon the knowledge learned in the previous lessons and use this to further their own understanding of why agriculture and aquaculture was important to the traditional ways of living. This task incorporates the Aboriginal 8 ways of learning as it allows for students to have a more tactile approach and a more self-guided approach to the artwork that they're going to be creating. Students have to go out into the environment and collect things like rocks, dirt, leaves and sticks, and anything that they want to use from nature to reinforce the message that they're trying to convey in their artwork. So it really gives them an opportunity to get out and feel things and have that tactile approach to their own learning. Although this lesson doesn't delve deeply into why agriculture and aquaculture were important to traditional Aboriginal culture, all of that would have been covered in previous lessons. So this is more about reinforcing their knowledge and trying to get them to think of ways to reflect on what they know, and put their own knowledge into their artwork and into their discussions with their peers, so that there is that different way of explaining the importance, because a student might explain it to another student in a different way than the teacher might explain it. So it will really allow for them to gain a greater understanding of the concepts that we're speaking about, and be able to put that into their artwork and use their creativity and their individuality to create a piece of art.